Get them straight, buddy.
Right.
As the old folks say from the South, we got to straighten them out. Not straighten them out, straighten them out.
Right.
Straighten them out with some scrubbing grits.
Goddamn, we all some ugly motherfuckers.
You can go ahead, bro.
Hey, y'all asked for that shit, didn't you?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. We certainly want to welcome you to this very special Benavidez versus Plant. We're going to call it a trainer's roundtable. I'm Brian Custer. I'm the host of Showtime Championship Boxing. And listen, our version of March Madness, well, it began on March 4th. That's when we brought you Brandon Figueroa, who beat Mark Mixayo. And then last week, it continued on when Tim Tszyu stopped Tony Harrison. And, well, one of the biggest and the best fights of the year is going to go down next Saturday in Las Vegas, Showtime pay-per-view, when former two-time WBC super middleweight champion, I'm talking about the Mexican monster, David Benavidez, he takes on the former IBF 168-pound champion in Caleb Sweet Hands Plant. This has been a fight that's basically been brewing for 5 years now. Two outstanding fighters in their prime who, let's be honest, can't stand one another. We thought it would be a great opportunity to talk about this outstanding matchup with some of the best boxing trainers and experts in the business. And we've got four of them, four of the sport's top trainers who are going to discuss and give us their opinions, their insight on this fight. And at the end of our discussion with these trainers, we're going to allow you, members of the media, to ask these guys questions. All we ask is you hit the raise your hand icon there on the Zoom, identify yourself, and then you can ask your question to one of these trainers. Let me introduce them and bring them in here. First of all, we have James Buddy McGirt, who former two-division world champion, 2002 boxing writer, trainer of the year. This man has trained everyone from the late Arturo Gatti, Antonio Tarver, Hasim Rahman, Paulie Malignaggi, Sergey Kovalov. I mean, he's got the current WBO middleweight champion of the world now. He joins us. We've also got Javon Sugarhill Steward, of course, the renowned trainer and the nephew of the late, great Emmanuel Stewart. Listen, you know, Sugarhill has got the heavyweight champion of the world, Tyson Fury, in his stable. Also, of course, he trained Anthony Durrell, another former world champion there as well. And we also have Bob Santos, the 2022 Sports Illustrated Ring Magazine Trainer of the Year. I mean, listen, Bob Santos right now training Carlos Adames, the heavyweight contender Lanier Pero, David Morrell. You know what he did with Hector Garcia, led him to become a world champion. Alberto Puello. I think everybody in the world is training with Bob Santos these days. He's with us as well. Good to have you, Bob. And then last but not least, we got Derrick James. DJ, listen, former fighter, and this man is the 2022 boxing writer, trainer of the year. You want to talk about a stable? He's got the undisputed champion at 154 pounds right now, Jermell Charlo. Of course, the unified welterweight champion of the world, Errol Spence Jr., the lightweight unbeaten sensation in the Ghost, Frank Martin, and just added to the stable, the former heavyweight champion of the world, Anthony Joshua. All right, guys, it's great to have you. So let's get right into this. We got Benavidez versus Plant. I want to hear from each one of you. First of all, your thoughts on the matchup, Benavidez versus Plant. And in your opinion, what makes this matchup so intriguing? Sugarhill, let's start with you.
Well, for me, this is one of the biggest fights in boxing right now, and I'm so into boxing, and most people won't believe that I don't watch boxing all the time. But this is one of those fights that interests me, and I know it's very interesting for the public. You have two former world champions, two young fighters that are at the top of the game, and as we all know, it's some bad blood. So everybody wants to see it a little bit personal sometimes. And those type of fights actually make exciting fights because there's more than just a fight on the line. It's something personal within the two of those guys that makes it more interesting. It's just like seeing an old street fight and two guys are talking stuff to each other. And they finally meet up after school or something, and they're getting it on. And this is just bringing a lot of interest to boxing. Myself as a trainer and as a fan, it's just both of these fighters, they're at the top. I mean, Benavidez has fast hands, and you got sweet hands. Both of them have the ability to knock out, their opponent, and it just makes it such an exciting fight at 168 pounds. And they've both been asking for the best, and here you got it. You got two of the best right here.
Buddy, your thoughts?
I think it's going to be a great fight. It's something boxing needs. You have, two of the best in that division. So I personally think that this here should open the doors to more great fights happening in boxing. I mean, now after this, you got Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia. So I think that this right here is opening the door and let people know that, real fighters still fight each other.
Bob?
Well, I know both guys pretty well. I actually lived with David Benavidez and obviously Louis DeCubas Jr., who, I worked with for a long, long time. He helped guide Caleb Plant's career. He's helped advise Benavidez. And like I said, I lived with the guy. So the bad blood, it really is there. And I was cordial with both guys, obviously. So they'd put me in the middle of it sometimes. So you knew they were on a head-on course collision. And it's going to be brutal at times, I think, from the perspective of Benavidez. But I think if he gets too intense, you know what I mean, and doesn't stay, lose your head, lose your ass. So if he overgoes there, he can be in some trouble. And I know him fairly well, so we'll see how it plays out.
What do you think, Derrick?
I think it's very interesting because I like both of the guys. I've known Caleb for a pretty good while, but I think that it comes down to who can take it. You know what I mean? Who can implement their strategy best or what they do best. Both of them have very fast hands. Both of them are very athletic. I think it's just going to come down to probably fortitude.
Interesting.
Where fortitude may be the issue.
Sugarhill, I'm curious because you've had to train for both of these guys. When you talk about with Darrell, I mean, you've had to put a game plan together for Benavidez. You've had to put a game plan together for Caleb Plant.
No, you said it right. I tried. You said it right.
What was the game? What was the game plan for those guys when you look at those fights?
Well, it was two different game plans, pretty much for Benavidez. But for Benavidez, it was just to box. To box him and to be strong. And for Caleb Plant, it was just more of it wasn't to box him, but it was to pressure him more because he's a good boxer himself, and he has beautiful movement. So I didn't want Anthony to go in there and try to box him. And Anthony didn't want to box too, so I can't make Anthony do what he don't want to do. So formulating that, I mean, it was just two different ones, but with both of these guys together, I mean, it's an electrifying fight because they can both of the fighters can do both things. They can box and they can both get in there and handle the business. And it was like Derrick was saying, it's whoever sticks to that game plan.
I'm curious, when you look at it, what's the strengths, what's the weaknesses you think of both fighters? I'll start with you, buddy. When you look at Benavidez and Plant.
Well, I'm just going to be 100% honest with you. I've never really seen Benavidez fight that much. You know what I mean? I've seen him maybe fight once, and it was a fight that he just totally dominated. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I'm kind of like Sugarhill. I don't watch boxing like I used to anymore because it's pretty much not the same. The game has changed. Now I'm more interested now because the best are fighting the best. So I know he's big, he's strong, he's fast. And I just hope that he changes his mindset instead of and not thinking about going there trying to knock him out. But that could be dangerous with a guy like Plant.
What do you think, Derrick? Strengths and weaknesses of these guys?
I think that both of the guys I think both of them share the weakness of depth because they never had to dig themselves out of anything. So we don't, that's the part about it I think we don't know about. Not saying that they don't have it. Just saying that we haven't seen them have to do that because they've been so impressive or so good in the fights that they fought that we don't know if they can they don't have the back and forth or the ability to dig themselves out of a hole. Because there's going to be a point in this fight, if not from the first round, that somebody's going to have to, be digging themselves out of a hole. Because I mean, with the way that Benavidez feels about Plant, the Plant is very coy. He plays it very, he plays it very easy, but at the same time, he's a tough guy too. But he does so. That's what we'll see. I think that will be that's a weakness for both because we really don't know, and it may not be their weakness, but from my perspective, looking at it, it's something that we don't know. So we'll try to make them do that if that be the case.
Bobby, you know both of you guys really well. What would you say their strengths and weaknesses are?
You know what? I think people are going to be surprised with one thing about Benavidez. You know, he chose to fight his fights the way he has, to be impressive, to make a name for himself, to demand like the Canelo fight, so on and so forth. So I've seen him up close and personal in a lot of sparring sessions. And a lot of times I used to tell Junior, I talked to him later that night. Well, what'd you see? I said, man, this guy's like a savant. He's a lot smarter in the ring than people think. He can get up on his toes. He can box with a jab. You know, people just see him kind of square up and come this way. He's choosing to do that, to break you down, to generate a fan base. And that's what his father wants him to do as a trainer. And because I've seen it, but I've seen him long with a jab on his toes. He can do a plethora of things. So I think he can do more things than Caleb Plant can when he needs to. My only concern with him is right now, all I'm hearing from him is I'm going to destroy this guy, destroy this guy, destroy this guy. And, you know, that could backfire where you get so aggressive and you run yourself into shots that you don't need to do. So I think if he could stay within himself with his God-given abilities, obviously I like him to break down Caleb Plant. And I like Caleb a lot. I think both of their stocks is going to rise because I think he's going to force Plant to fight. He's not going to be able to just box him for 12 rounds. I don't see that happening. So he's going to force him to fight, and he's going to make Caleb go to a place that I don't think he's ever been to before. Because in the case with Canelo, he broke him down methodically, but he never really put him through the fire. He broke him down methodically and then hit him with some big shots, and it was over. This guy's going to force him to fight. You know, so we'll see how that plays out. But that's what I'm seeing.
You know, Bobby brought up a really interesting point, and I want to hear you guys' opinion on this. Buddy, I'll start with you. You know, Bobby said the only thing it worries him about David was the hatred that he has for Caleb, and will that backfire because he is so angry at him? Have you ever had a fighter who didn't like the other guy that's like, okay, I'm ready to go in there and just tear this guy's head off? And did you have to tell him to control himself? How would you handle that if you were the trainer for one of these guys?
Well, you know, you gotta be able to control that. You gotta let the fighter know, listen, you can't go in there with one thing in mind trying to knock him out, because you can walk into something. You know what I mean? You're going to walk into something you might not want to. So you just got to be on your P's and Q's. You got to take that and use it to your advantage. You know what I mean? You got to take it and be smart about it. Put it in a way that is going to help you make the fight much easier. But if you go out there and try to gun them out, you wind up getting gunned out. So you got to be careful.
You know that, buddy. Lose your head, lose your ass.
Hello. In that order.
And Sugarhill, I mean, you saw that firsthand because, you know, Darrell talked a lot going into Caleb. Just said how he didn't like him, didn't respect him. You wanted him to, and obviously, you know, Caleb ends up knocking him out. What would be the advice you would give, let's say, Jose Sr. going into this fight with Caleb Plant?
Well, I mean, he knows David better than any of us do, and I'm sure he knows how to control that. He's an undefeated fighter, and he's you know, his career has been going great so far, and I've seen him. I watched, you know, and I've seen how he handles them, and I don't think it's anything that they haven't been through. I know that David doesn't like him, and you know, vice versa. It was the same with Anthony, but I really believe this is a lot different than what Anthony and Caleb Plant have.
Right, yeah.
And it's a lot different. So it's gonna be some emotions. I think both of them are gonna have those emotions because the other one's gonna bring it out of the other one. and it's whoever can control it itself and stick to the game plan. And then honestly, it should get a little bit wild in there. I mean, yeah, if they got emotions like that, they're gonna let them out. Ain't nobody gonna be able to stop.
It's going to get wild in there. You can take that to the bank. I know that. It's going to get wild in there. That's going to happen.
Yeah, one of them gonna want to make the other one get wild. They're gonna both be trying to break each other's composure off. So yeah.
Derrick, give me your thoughts. Have you ever had a fighter like that who had that kind of animus for his opponent?
I had a fighter like that. I won't say his name, but what I'll say is that
it wouldn't happen to be Charlo, would it, Derrick?
No.
I seen him a few times too. Him and Lauren, and it got real nasty in there. I said, "God damn, we sparring. Calm down. There's a fight someone."
No, not him. But I'm just saying, I've had a fighter to fight somebody, and I had a strategy that I had to make two strategies, right? I had to make a strategy of him fighting and a strategy of him boxing. And then whatever he felt, because it's like you really can't control him as much as whatever he felt, I had to coach him from that perspective. So
Derrick, you almost sounded like Charlo to me because I think it's him. I'm not sure. You don't want to throw him on no dirt under him, but I almost think it's him because that boy got some fire.
No, to be honest, I'm serious. It was a fight where it was somebody who was talking trash from the team, right? So I knew that my guy was taking it. He was just feeding his fire, And so, he just went in there and, hey, Bob, y'all stop. But it's not, we just gonna say, hey, it's what it's difficult to keep these guys on the right path. You know what I mean? Like to follow strategy, but you gotta kind of I don't know. Yeah,
well, how about this, David? Derrick, let me follow up. When you had, because Bob brought up Charlo, him and Harrison, that Bill, those two, oh my. So what did you do in that second fight to say, Mel, I need you to stay focused. Don't fall for the stuff that he's saying here at this press conference because it was there. What did you do to try to rein him in? Obviously, he got the win in the stoppage.
Well, wait, let me start this over. First of all, he mentioned that about 4 weeks ago, about that. Coach, I really believe what he was saying about you in the press conference. I'm like, man, what are you talking about? Like, you think I'm going to call him and tell him, you're my guy. What are you talking about? But really, it was like, I just kept him the composure in the game plan. So listen, you can't let him, because he's really acting. Tony is I'm sure Sugar knows him better, but he's a hilarious guy who cracks.
You hear all this? Now we know why he's trainer of the year, right? It ain't just the mitts, it ain't just the heavy bag. He's a psychologist.
He's a comedian, man, and he's really trying to get in your head. So like, you gotta stay focused. You gotta stay on track. Even afterwards. Listen, and to go back after that press conference we had, Jamel was so mad they left me. He believed initially what he said. He said, they left me in LA, man, and we were down at I forget where we were, but he left me at the press conference. But that's how mad he was. But for training him, I had to get deeply, mentally, just listen, man, stay on your jab and stay focused, stay composed. Because if you don't, he's gonna get you.
Yeah. You guys talked about Jose Sr., obviously the father trains David Benavidez. Buddy, listen, in your long career, and we've seen this in the sport, where a father-son trainer, it's gone great, and sometimes it's flamed out. Is it a good thing when you have the father-son trainer dynamic in this sport at this level?
I think what happens is it's all good and gravy until you get into situations where shit ain't clicking. Now you got to see how good it really is going to work. It's like, say, for instance, when Shane fought Vernon Forrest first time, when Vernon had his number, Shane had no answers. And then after the second fight, him and his dad were, never the same really anymore. So I just think that it all depends on how they both handle the shit don't go the way they plan, how they're going to, get on the same page in that 1 minute in between rounds.
Sugarhill, your thoughts on that? The father-son dynamic when it comes to the sport at the elite level.
A lot of it with the father-son is very emotional. So you got the father who is someone who the son looks up to dearly and has been always trying to please and to satisfy and to, make him happy and, things like that. Sometimes it's difficult, and sometimes the fathers know their sons, so they know that sometimes, talking trash and becoming emotional is going to bring the best out of their son. So it's just knowing that person and knowing how to bring the best out of him and knowing how he reacts to certain things. In boxing, you got father and son. Some of them are disasters. Some of them are the worst things ever, and then some of them work. So it's not really it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just whatever works. Just like us other trainers who don't have sons, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So it seems to work with Benavidez and his father. Yeah, I mean they had the same similar situation with when the Terrence Crawford fight. It was so much emotion was going on and things like that with Benavidez, and he had to withstand that, and that didn't go as planned. So maybe I believe it was something learned from that fight as well. To carry them into this fight here.
Bobby, you know the Benavidez family really well. Talk to me about that dynamic. Is that a good thing or a bad thing at this level?
Obviously, I worked with, co-trained Robert Guerrero with Ruben Guerrero, right? So I think, and I have a lot of experience working with a lot of the fathers with these fighters, and I think when in training camp is one thing. A lot of times it's a good thing because they can push the kid. I think where it becomes really problematic is in guiding the corner. And that's where I see the biggest problems is like, I'll give you an example. We were fighting Danny Garcia with Robert Guerrero. I think in the first 5 rounds, we were up 4 rounds to 1. And I was telling Robert, just, continue to do what you do in center of the ring, just kind of turn them. And, then he got hit with a good shot, and then it became emotional where the father's like, he doesn't care about the rounds anymore. Like, just go get his ass now. Well, when you start doing things like that, you start running into shots. And I think that's where, where Caleb actually, if he can turn things up and get them to a spot where the father gets a little panicky, and you see that because, hey, that's their flesh and blood. So no matter what you want to say, you're never going to separate that. And if you could get it to that level, and I've always felt going against a father-son combination, if I could get it to that level where it starts getting a little personal and this and that, then they start to fall apart. And I've seen that many, many times. So I think it's not that the father can't be a great trainer, but when it's your own son, I don't care what anybody says, to separate the two is very, very difficult. And so when the son is at the apex and the other fighter's a little below, yeah, it's all going to be gravy. But with all things being equal, for the most part, I'd like to see a trainer that can separate himself. Hey, do I need to stop the fight? Is he taking too much damage? And a lot of times these fathers, no disrespect to them, they're doing the best they can for their son, but they just can't separate the two. And you can see why. It's your flesh and blood.
Yeah, what do you think, Derrick?
I think I have to agree with what Bob is saying, but at the same time, I think that a lot of times if I see that there's something brewing where the father may be a little bit emotional, the father may be, I may say something really loud so he can hear me. And, I go out and say something like if they say, yell out something, I'll yell out the opposite. So it's like kind of to get them ruffled a little bit to where, you kind of, and that's where it starts initially. If the son starts to question the father, I think that everybody has to be on the same page, right? Because if they're not on the same page, it's going to be very difficult. If they have to have the same mission, the same goal, regardless of whatever goes down, they have to be on the same page. If they're not on the same page, the same goals, so sometimes they may not be on the same page, but the goals and ideas of goals may push them and they can deal with each other. When they're not on the same page and they don't really have the same goals, it's a very different issue.
Okay, so I know there's members of the media who want to ask you guys some questions. I'll wrap mine up with this, and we'll go right around the horn here. Buddy, we'll start with you. If you were, let's say, Stephen Breadman Edwards, and you were training Caleb Plant, how would you fight David Benavidez on March 25th?
Well, one couple of things you got to do, I believe, is you can't give him the same look every round. And when Benavidez starts throwing on those combinations, sometimes you got to punch one to break his rhythm. You can't let him just get a rhythm going. Because once he gets a rhythm going, it's going to be a long night. So sometimes you got to break that rhythm because there's an old saying: you can't punch and block punches at the same time. So if you're throwing those punches, just come right down the pipe and try to break his rhythm. So that's what I believe. And just got to give him different looks. You can't do the same thing.
Sugarhill, same to you. If you had Caleb Plant, how would you fight? How would you fight David Benavidez?
I'm glad you asked me because I feel like y'all asking me is the wrong person. I failed twice. You're gonna ask me about. You're gonna ask me how I failed. I have failed twice. I mean, I don't think I'm credible enough to be a
yeah, but Sugar, you got to remember something. There's an old saying, right? Let the trainers train, let the fighters fight. You can't fight the fight for them.
Yeah,
and at the same
you can't
time,
fight the fight
you have
for
more
them.
experience than all of us.
So that's why I said Sugarhill. That's why I said if you had Caleb Plant, not to say that the other guys you didn't have were good. I'm just saying if you had Caleb Plant, how would you fight David Benavidez?
I'm gonna tell you my bad advice. My bad advice would be my bad advice for Caleb would be to box. To box, use your superior movement angles, and Caleb knows how to frustrate people as well. So use all of that, and don't look for a knockout punch because things happen in boxing. When you not looking for something, it's just catching somebody when they're off guard. And Caleb does that very well, as he did with Anthony Durrell. So he kept his composure, and I think similar to that game plan, his movement, his working the body, and taking the fight out of his rhythm is something that I would have Caleb do.
What do you think, DJ?
Now that's bad advice. But
No.
Hey, no.
No, get out of here. What would you do, DJ?
If I was fighting David Benavidez, man, I would do my best to not let him be himself, right? Because I think it's very difficult when you let those punches off. I would do whatever I could to take that away, offset him, and really it'd probably be with the movement may be best for him to kind of not let him be himself. Because I think whenever you get him standing right in front of him, it's always a bad day. You know what I mean? And I think that you got to practice on holding and clinching. Because if you don't, you're going to be in for a long night. Because it's like once David lets start letting those punches go, hey, man, I don't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's like a lot of holding, a lot of clinching, and a lot of not letting him be himself. But like I said, Sugarhill, it's easier said than done because we all say it, but until you get in there with him and he started throwing
I got it. Bobby, what about you? If you had Caleb, how would you fight Benavidez?
Well, Benavidez, a lot of times when you look at him, he likes to come up, he come back, he's coming up, he's come back. So I try to get Caleb to keep turning him, just keep turning him, give him both directions, a lot of angles, obviously, keep turning him. And like Derrick said, there's no doubt about it. You better tie up on the inside because he's got fast hands and he's very vicious to the body. So, boy, I'd be MMA all night on his ass.
Buy some MMA lessons for
All right, so we'll wrap it up with this, buddy McGirt. If you had David Benavidez, how would you fight Caleb Plant? Look, now buddy done went to the gym on us. So we'll go to you.
We gotta work, man. We gotta work, baby.
Gotta work. We'll go to you, Sugarhill. If you had David Benavidez, how would you fight Caleb Plant?
My bad advice for Benavidez fighting Caleb Plant would be to know how to cut the ring off. For one, he cuts it off. David cuts the ring off okay, but it would probably just be that really, just to know how to cut the ring off a little bit more and try to make Caleb move the way he wants to move him, and then time him pretty much. From cutting the ring off. That would be the best plan, Isaiah. David's fast. David's big. He can jab. He can do all the other stuff too as well, as Derrick was saying. But it's just still, I just believe he has to cut the ring off to slow the pace down, and then I guess also be prepared for holding.
Yeah.
So, with saying that is not getting too close and being able to cut the ring off and move Caleb in different directions to land those fast punches, and also go to the body as well.
Got it. I thought it was interesting because when I was talking with Benavidez at the press conference, Derrick, I was like, look, it took Canelo a little bit took him to the 10th, 11th round to finally get to Caleb Plant. And David Benavidez just shook me off. It's like, bro, my arms are a lot longer than Canelo. Canelo got short arms. I got long arms, and I got a potent jab, and I'm going to get right to this guy. But so if you were Benavidez' trainer, how would you tell him to fight Caleb Plant?
And you know what? I really would kind of put the pressure on him and back him down. I would, because and really at the same time, because you got to watch out, because Caleb does set traps, so he will counterpunch you. So you have to back him down at a distance that suits you best. But I think that the pressure, and hopefully he'll succumb at the end of the fight. I think that's what they're basing it on, is from Canelo. So I think they just got to keep on putting the pressure on him. And hopefully, but at the same time, like I said, he's a great counterpuncher, and he has great defense, and he has great angles. So I think that you just have to really be 2 steps ahead of him in every move. If he does this, you do this, because other than that, you're walking into something. And at the same time, that emotion that he does have, and he really doesn't like him for real, is it may be something that he's going to have to deal with. And maybe even in the fight, because he may go in there with it, but once it doesn't work for him, he may have to sit back and say, okay, all right, now I got to focus on strategizing game plan. Because, you can walk into a hole.
Yeah. Bob, you got the floor here.
Controlled aggression is what I would have with him, because no matter what, I know David very well. Like I said, I lived with him. He really can't stand the guy. I mean, when he's saying he wants to put him in the hospital, you could take that to the bank. He wants to put him in the hospital. I mean, I know him. So you got to control the aggression. You got to know that as the trainer. Say, look, we got to break him down methodically. You can't just go in there with reckless abandon. At times I'm hearing that from him. And so, work behind the jab, definitely work behind the jab, control the distance, like Derrick said, and break him down methodically. Just pressure, but methodically. Keep pressuring him, keep jabbing him, keep touching him to the body every opportune time that you can. And then when the time is right, where, Caleb's not going to be able to move as much, if he can't move for 12 rounds, he's going to be in some serious trouble with him when he's got to fight fire for fire when he settles him down. If that happens, it's good night, Irene, for Caleb Plant. If Caleb Plant can continue to move, tie him up and this and that, then it could be a long night for Benavidez. That said, I'm picking Benavidez by probably maybe late stoppage.
Listen, guys, this has been a great conversation. I know there's members of the media who's got some questions for you. So members of the media, all you got to do is hit the raise your hand icon there on the Zoom. Let's bring in Andrew Roberts. He's from Swanson Communications. He's going to bring in members of the media. Buddy McGirt had to train one of his fighters, so he had to leave us. But we do have Sugarhill. We've got Derrick James. We've got Bob Santos available to answer your questions. So, Andrew, let's let members of the media ask their questions.
I got my hand raised as a show.
It does show.
Yeah, I see it. I see it.
I got it. All right. Thank you, Brian. Our first question will come from James Bell with the Boxing Source. James, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
All right. Thanks, Andrew. This question is open for the panel. As the old saying goes in boxing, timing beats speed. But in this particular fight, with Caleb Plant, his power could also be a factor as well. So could his power, as far as like what he's been doing in his past couple of fights, be something that could throw off the offensive output of David Benavidez?
Yeah, I'll start. I don't know. I think that it could, but I think that sometimes the motivation and the determination of Benavidez, his disdain for Caleb Plant, may be something that may not stop him. He knows. I'm sure he knows that Caleb can punch, but I think that until Caleb actually hurts him, that'll be the only thing that stops him from coming forward, I believe.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Derrick. That we all know the punch you don't see coming is the punch that can hurt you, and obviously anybody can get hit with a punch they don't see coming at any given time, but I'm not seeing that. I just think Benavidez is strong, big kid, and I'm just not seeing it. I know he was sparring with guys like Cali Pavlik when he was 14 years old, going to toe with guys like that. So I I don't see that happening, but we'll see.
I feel like that, I don't think Caleb's going in there with the power, and I don't think David Benavidez respects Caleb punching power. He's just, his biggest knockout was he knocked out Anthony Durrell, and that was one of those punches that you didn't see. So it could happen to anybody, but both men are strong, and they both, either one of them get knocked out with either one of them's punch because it's boxing. This is a 168-pound division, and both of these guys are, not big punches, but they can hurt somebody and knock somebody out.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is there, if I can follow up on that gentleman's question, is there one defining quality that's going to be the difference in this fight? And I guess that's for all of you guys. If you look at the matchup, Sugarhill, is there one thing that you could point to and say this will be the difference in this fight? What do you think?
No, I don't think it's a big difference in the fight. That's how close it is. It's I don't know if yin or yang sounds right, but it's that close where one puzzle fits the other one. So it's just what happens. It's just what they do at those particular times in that ring. That's how close it is.
For me, Brian, I think I've been up and close with both guys, know them very well. I think it's going to be punch output and hand speed, and that favors Benavidez. It's going to be punch output and hand speed. And I think that's going to be the telltale difference in this fight.
Derrick James?
That goes back to the first thing I said initially. It may come down to fortitude. I think that Bob is correct and Sugarhill is correct. They both are very similar, but I think that, Benavidez may throw more punches. But I think that if Caleb's defense is what it has always been, pretty good with his feet, with his head movement. It may be a little difficult, but I think it's going to come down to fortitude and who really has the dog in them, say they really want it. And I think that's what it's going to basically come down to.
Well, guys, this has been great. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour. We certainly want to thank you for giving us your time. Bob, I know you've got some big fights obviously coming up on the horizon. Best of luck to you with your champion coming up in Alberto Puello that we'll see on Showtime. Sugarhill, I know you got the heavyweight champion of the world getting ready to fight and getting ready for that. So best of luck to you, Sugarhill. Keep that train rolling there with the heavyweight champ.
I would hop on the train, but they have a strike on the trains here in England. I was going to take a train down to London to holler at Derrick for a minute, but the trains are on strike. So
we can meet halfway, man. We can meet halfway.
And Derrick James, look, I know you've got Joshua. Best of luck there, and listen, we look forward to seeing that new style out of Anthony Joshua now that he's under your tutelage.
I can't wait to see that.
I know, absolutely.
I can't wait to see Derrick James' hands around his neck.
You're right.
You guys are great. I appreciate you all. Derrick James, Javon Sugarhill Steward, and of course Bob Santos. We thank you, and of course, hey, look, we hope you guys enjoy the fight on March 25th. It is Benavidez, it's Plant, it's Showtime pay-per-view, March 25th from Las Vegas. I'm Brian Custer. Thanks for joining us,
Bob.
God bless you guys.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate y'all.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Recording stopped.